The wind came first, dry, steady, whispering down from the ridge like it had something to say. Then came Cale Ryder, riding slow, hat pulled low, eyes narrowed against the dust. He wasn't here for the view. He wasn't here for luck either. He'd come for a name, Briggs, the man who'd shot his brother outside a saloon 2 winters back. Word was, Briggs had drifted into Dry Creek Junction, taken up work under another name. Cale didn't much care what name he used. Dead men didn't need them. The town looked half asleep under the late afternoon sun. Warped storefronts, a tethered mule flicking its tail, a tangle of children chasing something unseen in the dirt. Every face that turned toward him did so with the same squint. Curiosity first, then caution. The kind of look a place gives when it's tired of trouble but expects it anyway. Cale dismounted at the livery. The stable boy didn't meet his eyes. "Need feed in a stall," Cale said. The boy nodded, chewing something slow. "Town's full," he mumbled. "Then make space." The boy's shoulders stiffened, and Cale realized his voice still carried that soldier's edge, too sharp for peace, too familiar with command. He softened it. "I'll pay double." Coins hit the counter with a sound the boy didn't argue with. Inside the general store, the air smelled of flour and lamp oil. Behind the counter stood Reverend Hale, though he wore no collar today, just suspicion and pressed sleeves. "Afternoon," Cale offered. The Reverend's gaze flicked from the dust on his boots to the scar along his jaw. "Don't see many strangers around these parts. I won't be one long. A lie, maybe, or a prayer." He bought grain, jerky, and a box of cartridges. Hale wrapped them in brown paper like he was handling sin. When Cale stepped back into the fading light, he caught sight of a woman across the street, standing by the old post station, hanging linens on a rope line. Her hair was chestnut, pulled loose by the wind. The house behind her looked half-mended, half-forgotten, much like the woman herself. Something in the way she moved, slow, careful, as if noise itself had betrayed her once, made him pause. He wasn't sure why. "Don't bother," someone muttered nearby. The stable boy again. "That's the widow. Folks say her husband caused the Dalton killings. Best steer clear." Cale gave no answer. He knew how stories worked in small towns. They never died, just changed hands. He walked toward the old freight shed behind the post house, meaning to find shelter for the night. But the smell of smoke stopped him. A thin column rose from behind the fence. He followed it, slow, hand near his coat. There she was again, the widow. Kneeling by a small fire, nursing a man's arm, wrapping it with a strip of linen. Her voice, low and steady, drifted with the crackle. "Stay still, Eli. You'll tear it open again," the man groaned, face hidden by shadow. Cale froze. He'd seen that face before, at least the scar that ran from cheek to ear. Briggs. For a heartbeat the world shrank, just wind, smoke, and that name burning in his skull. His hand twitched toward the revolver, then stopped. The widow looked up. Her eyes met his, calm, unafraid. "He's hurt bad," she said. "If you came for trouble, you'll have to wait your turn." Cale didn't move. The firelight trembled on her face, and something in it, that steady mercy, tangled with every reason he'd carried into town. He holstered the gun slowly. "Didn't come for him," he lied. "Good," she said, turning back to her patient. "Then you can help me keep him alive." For the first time in years, Cale didn't know if he was the hunter or the one being hunted. He only knew the wind had changed. And maybe, just maybe, so had he. By dawn, the storm had rolled in, thick gray clouds pressing low, the kind that made even the crows hide. The widow's house stood small against it, like a matchbox in a sea of dust and wind. Cale Ryder had spent half the night by the hearth, listening to the man's ragged breathing. Briggs, though she'd called him Eli, lay fevered on the cot, mumbling names that didn't belong in any prayer. The widow moved quietly, the way women do when they've learned silence keeps them safe. She carried a tin cup of water, set it down beside the wounded man, and glanced toward Cale without looking too long. "You sleep at all?" she asked. "Didn't plan to." "Good." He was thrashing most of the night. Seems like he's got reason to. Her eyes flicked up then, quick, assessing. You know him? Cale shook his head once. Don't believe so. A lie again. He could feel it sit heavy on his tongue. The wind whistled through a loose board, making the lamp flame dance. She adjusted it, pressing her palm against the glass to steady it. The gesture was small but carried a tenderness he hadn't seen in years, like someone still believed warmth could hold back the dark. Outside, the rain began. First a soft patter, then a steady drumming. It filled every pause between them until she spoke again. You've got that look, she said. What look? The kind that says you've been chasing something too long. He almost smiled. And you'd know that look? I've seen mirrors before. She turned away, busying herself with a pot of broth, though the corner of her mouth tightened, a sign she'd said more than she meant. Cale leaned back in the chair, boots near the fire, mind caught between the warmth of the room and the cold thought that the man she was saving had once murdered his brother. The law hadn't caught him, but fate had brought them both under the same roof. That had to mean something, and yet watching her tend the wound, he couldn't draw the gun. Not here. Not while her hands moved like prayer. The smell of sage and broth filled the air. She ladled some into a tin bowl and offered it to him. You look like a man who hasn't eaten in days. I've had worse meals. That's not saying much. He took a slow sip. Salt, bone, patience, the kind of food made by someone who knew what hunger meant. You live out here alone? He asked. Alone's easier, no one to bury after. That a joke? No, she said softly. Just truth. He studied her face, the quiet lines at her eyes, the unpainted grace of someone who'd stopped expecting kindness. There was something steady in her, something that made the storm outside feel smaller. Why'd you help him? He asked finally, nodding toward the bed. She didn't answer at once, just stirred the pot again, slow circles. Because no one else would, she said. And because once, somebody did the same for me. Her words landed like a weight in his chest. Cale looked at the fire, watching the flames bend and settle. He thought about the grave he never marked, the letters he never sent, and the anger that had carried him here, all of it feeling smaller now, too. When she went to the window and drew the curtain, the world outside had vanished. Just rain and the faint shape of the barn. The room felt almost safe. Almost. Storm's not letting up, she said. Then I'll stay till it does. She nodded, though her tone was measured. You can stay, so long as you leave whatever you're running from outside that door. He met her gaze, half expecting judgment. But what he saw instead was mercy. Quiet, unspoken, steady as the rain. Cale didn't know if the storm was passing or just beginning. All he knew was that for the first time in years, he didn't want to ride out too soon. By the third day, the rain had softened to a mist that clung to the fields. The land smelled of wet earth and pine, and the house, once cold, now carried the faint scent of coffee and boiled herbs. Cale Ryder woke before sunrise, as he always did. Habit, not peace. He stepped quietly across the creaking floor, careful not to wake the widow or the man still healing in the back room. The fire had burned low, just coals now, glowing, steady, stubborn. He liked that about them. They reminded him of her. When Nora Dalton came into the room, she was carrying a stack of folded cloth and a calmness that never felt forced. You're up early, she said, tying her shawl tighter. Old habits, he replied. Army doesn't leave much room for sleeping in. You're not in the army anymore. Tell that to my bones. She gave a soft smile, not warm exactly, but real. It stayed a moment before she turned to pour him coffee from the pot. They sat across from each other at the wooden table, the same one that had seen too many quiet mornings. Outside, fog rolled through the pasture like ghost smoke. Inside, only the sound of spoons and rain remained. You fixed the gate, she said finally. It needed it. I didn't ask you to. Didn't have to. A loose gate's like a lie. Never stays shut when you need it to. That earned him the smallest laugh, a dry, surprised sound that she quickly tried to hide. But it lingered, lighting her face more than the morning sun. He found himself wanting to say something honest, something that didn't come out like smoke. But words were dangerous when they came from men who'd lived too long with silence. So he just sipped his coffee and watched her hands fold the cloth. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. Softer. Careful. Eli's fever's down. He'll live. Cale set his cup down slow. That so? You sound disappointed. Just surprised. She studied him a moment, eyes narrowing like she was trying to read a map she'd seen before. You're not from nowhere, she said. You've been carrying something since you got here. I can feel it. Then don't feel too close. That should have ended it. But Nora only nodded, as if she'd expected the wall. Fine, she said. You don't owe me truth. But while you're under this roof, don't feed me half of it either. He looked up, meeting her gaze fully for the first time. She didn't flinch, didn't hide. That kind of courage could quiet a man faster than a bullet. I'll tell you something true then, he said. You keep people alive like it costs you nothing. But it costs you everything, doesn't it? Her lips parted just slightly, not for an answer but for air. Then she turned away. Some debts you don't pay with coin. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, just full. Like the house had been waiting for the truth to walk in. Later, while Nora tended to the herbs by the window, Cale stepped outside. The air was cool, washed clean. He looked at the hills stretching toward the horizon, the same hills that had once felt like walls. Now they looked like a road. For the first time since he'd buried his brother, Cale felt the anger in him falter. Not gone, but gentled, like a wild horse finally stopping to breathe. When he turned back, she was watching him through the open door, a quiet steadiness in her eyes. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The storm had passed, but something else, something alive, was beginning to take its place. By late spring, the mud had turned to dust again. Dry Creek Junction always went quiet before trouble, like the land itself held its breath. Cale Ryder knew the sound of silence before a storm. This one wasn't made of weather. It was made of whispers. He felt them the moment he walked down Main Street for supplies. Eyes followed him, eyes that looked away too slow. Two women stopped sweeping the boardwalk when he passed. A man at the blacksmith spat and said, just loud enough, "Widow Dalton sure got herself a new preacher." Cale didn't look back. Didn't have to. He'd heard that kind of poison before. The kind that wears a polite smile and sharpens itself on loneliness. Inside the store, Reverend Hale stood by the counter, sorting mail he had no right to touch. "Mr. Ryder," Hale said, voice syrup-thick. "Word is you've taken up at the Dalton house. That true?" Cale kept his tone even, helping with repairs. "Storm did a number on her roof." "Storms come and go," the Reverend said. "But sin tends to settle in." Cale's jaw tightened. "You calling me the storm or the sin?" Hale smiled, slow and cold. "Doesn't matter which, so long as it passes soon." He left the store before his temper could find something stupid to hold on to. But anger followed him, long and heavy like his shadow. When he reached the house, Nora was outside, hanging laundry in the sun. She turned when she saw his face. "What happened?" "Town's talking. They always are. Not like this. They think—" He stopped, the words catching. "They think you and I—" "Let them." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "They talked when my husband was alive. They'll talk when I'm dead. The trick is not living for their silence." He should have admired that. He almost did, but the truth sitting under his ribs ached too much to ignore. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. Her hands stilled on the line. The wind tugged a white sheet between them like a ghost rising. "What is it?" "The man you saved, Eli." He looked at the ground. "He killed my brother." The air changed, sharp, still, heavy as judgment. Nora didn't speak. She didn't even breathe for a while. Then quietly, "You knew." I wasn't sure until that night. And you stayed here, watched me patch him up. I had to know if it was true. And now? I don't know what I am without that anger." She turned away, eyes shining in the sun. "You brought it into my home, Cale. My one bit of peace." He stepped closer, but she raised a hand. "No," she said. "You should go." It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. Those 3 words hit harder than any bullet he'd ever felt. The sheet on the line snapped in the wind, bright white against the dust. He thought of reaching for it, for her, but his hand stayed at his sides. By the time he rode into town that evening, word had spread faster than the wind. Someone threw a rock that hit his boot. Someone else spat. "Go on, gunman," a voice sneered. "You done preaching mercy?" Cale didn't answer. The truth had taken the fight right out of him. Back at the edge of town, the sun fell red behind the ridge. He turned once to look at the widow's house. A small light flickered in the window, then went out. The wind carried the scent of dust and regret, and when the door closed behind Nora Dalton, it sounded like the end of something that might have been good, if only the world had let it. Summer came slow to Dry Creek, the kind that didn't rush forgiveness. The dust had settled, but not the hearts. Cale Ryder hadn't seen Nora Dalton in nearly 3 months. He'd kept to the hills, working odd ranch jobs, sleeping near his horse, and thinking more than a man ought to. Every dawn felt the same, a gray light that asked, "You done running yet?" By July, he'd run out of answers, so he rode back into town. The main street looked smaller than he remembered, quieter too. The livery boy was taller now, wearing the same wary eyes. A few townsfolk glanced up as Cale passed, but the usual whispering had softened to tired curiosity. Word traveled fast in Dry Creek, but so did forgetting. He stopped at the general store where Reverend Hale was stacking flour sacks with the zeal of a man polishing his own halo. "Morning, Reverend," Cale said. Hale froze, dusted his hands, and turned with that thin smile. "Didn't expect to see you again. Didn't expect to come back. And yet here you are." "Here I am," Cale said, pulling something from his coat, a folded letter, yellowed from travel. "You remember Eli Briggs?" The Reverend's face changed, just slightly, enough for truth to find its way in. Cale unfolded the letter, voice steady. "My brother wrote this before he died. Said he forgave Briggs. Said he pitied him more than hated him. Guess I never read it right till now." He handed it over. The Reverend didn't take it. Folks had started gathering outside the door, the way they do when something holy or terrible might happen. Cale raised his voice, not angry, just clear. "I came here for revenge. All I found was a woman who lived better than any of us. You called her a sinner. You called me worse. But maybe the only sin we've been guilty of is forgetting what mercy looks like." No one spoke. The wind caught the edge of the letter and fluttered it like a flag. Then quietly, he placed it on the counter and walked out. Nora was in her garden when he found her, the same patch of earth behind the house, now green again. She was trimming herbs with slow, careful hands. Her hair had silver threads now, or maybe they'd just caught the light. She didn't look up right away. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Maybe not. But I had something to return." Her scissors paused. "What's that?" "Your piece. You gave me some when I didn't deserve it." He waited, hat in hand, unsure what mercy looked like when you asked for it back. After a long silence, she spoke. "Town still talking?" "Not about us," he said. "About the harvest, the cattle prices, the weather, back to what they understand." That earned the faintest smile. She set the scissors down and faced him. "You still carrying that gun?" He shook his head. "Buried it near the ridge. Figured the land could use the metal more than I could." Her gaze softened, though her voice stayed calm. "And what now?" "Don't know. I ain't much good at staying put." "You fixed that roof once," she said. That held. "Yeah," he said quietly. "So did you." The words hung there, light but certain. Behind them, the air filled with the sound of a boy's laughter, a neighbor's child chasing a runaway chicken across the fence. Nora's face warmed as she watched, and Cale, for the first time in years, laughed too. Low, rough, unguarded. He didn't ask to stay. She didn't ask him to go, but when she picked up a second cup and poured coffee, it was answer enough. The sun began to drop. throwing gold across the valley. Cale looked at the horizon, at the long road that no longer called his name. "You're home now," she said softly, and he was. Not in the house, not even in the town, but in the quiet grace of a woman who'd turned vengeance into something far rarer: peace.